Priests and nuns in the Catholic Church are required to be celibate. Although many find this difficult, many of the sex acts they engage in with both priests and parishioners are voluntary. However, some are forced upon them. One of the most significant sacrifices a priest or nun makes for the Church is celibacy. Nuns regard Christ as their spouse. They choose to devote themselves to God rather than take a human partner. But many nuns find it difficult to uphold their religious beliefs and vows on a daily basis. The Catholic Church has had a fair share of monastic scandals, despite its demands for holiness and celibacy. So what makes the history of nuns an infamous and suspicious one? What examples do we have of some heinous acts? You will get to know this and plenty more in this video, so stay tuned with us till the end of this video. However, before that, here's a quick reminder that you can subscribe for free and like the video so that you can boost your algorithm. Comments are most welcome. Some of the topics covered in this video may be offensive or disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Scandalous affairs within the supposed sanctity of the convent. Scandalous affairs have occasionally disrupted the facade of piety nuns who have taken vows of chastity and found themselves entangled in illicit relationships, often with priests or even with fellow nuns. This secret romance has challenged the very foundations of their religious calling and resulted in broken vows and shattered reputations. Instances of scandalous affairs within convents have been documented throughout history. Some nuns, feeling isolated and yearning for companionship, formed intimate connections with priests who visited the convents. These forbidden relationships led to secret meetings, clandestine rendezvous, and even pregnancies. The repercussions of such affairs were far-reaching, with scandal and disgrace affecting both the individuals involved and the religious community at large. For the nuns in Rome, viewer discretion is suggested, since some of the subjects presented in this film may be upsetting or objectionable. The Santa della Massimo nuns in Rome were subjected to sexual initiation rituals, which occasionally involve as many as 3 persons. Other sisters filled her shoes. Even after the conference's originator, Maria Agnes Ferrario, was fired. By 1850, as Maria Luisa, the mistress of novices, was enforcing lewd twists between herself and the nuns in her convent, fabricating letters from the Virgin Mary and threatening anybody who challenged her practices. Scholar Hubert Wolff broke open the nuns of the Santa Ambrogio case, exposing decades-old unlawful truths that had been kept hidden in the Vatican archives even more shocking. However, are the links to which these nuns went to hide their secrets. Mistress of Novices, the founder of the convent of Santa Ambrogio Ferrario, lost her position as an abbess in the 1850s for promoting her as a false idol. Among other sisters, Rao's position as novice's mistress was taken up by Maria Luisa, who planned nightly meetings with her charges. One nun admitted that Maria Luisa urged me to lie with my legs lifted as she wrapped herself around me. She then told me to position myself so that I could accept her bodily fluids into me while making movements and a sound that I am unable to describe. In words, these liquids, according to Maria Luisa, might heal ailments as part of their initiation ceremony. She also requested the novices to lie breast to breast and face to face with her. Maria Luisa, the novice's mistress, wasn't simply having affairs with the other nuns. She was also having an affair with a confessor who was a Jesuit from the convent. When the two met together at night, they dispelled suspicion by claiming that they were communing with God. Maria Luisa did succeed in getting the confessor to sleep by forging letters from the Virgin Mary because of the novice, Maria Francesca's, lovely handwriting. Maria Luisa urged her to compose the holy letters. Soon, everyone in the convent, including the confessor, who leaped into bed with Maria Luisa, was adhering to the holy instructions. Confessional affair. Early in the 19th century, Maria Agnes Ferrario, the convent's founder, became embroiled in a number of controversies. Ferrario was a spiritual advisor to Pope Leo XI, but when her transgressions were exposed, she found herself in hot trouble. Ferrario engaged in a three-way tryst with her confessor and another nun. In addition to having an affair with her confessor, when she was made pregnant by religious officials, she faked miracles and had 2 abortions. Amazingly, even when Maria Agnes lost her position as abbess in 1816, her convent was not closed down by the Inquisition, but instead behind closed doors. The illegal conduct persisted. One of the Santa Ambrogio confessors was hiding a secret. He was using a false identity. He was actually Joseph Cloak, a revered theologian and Pope's advisor. Cloak started an affair with a nun in 1848, and the confessor acknowledged having several sexual meetings with Maria Luisa during the Inquisition trial in an attempt to explain himself. Cloak argued that their relationship was exclusively spiritual and not sexual in nature. Even though Clon admitted his guilt, the Inquisition ordered him to spend 2 years in a Jesuit home and removed him from his position as a confessor hearing official. Sexual initiation. Maria Luisa established various unconventional practices, such as the right to sexual initiation to new nuns. Maria Luisa informed the nuns that the blessings contained in her bodily fluids may be shared at the climax. Maria Luisa acknowledged throughout the trial that the revered orders. Founder Ferrario utilized such techniques to impart his miraculous elixir to Maria Luisa and prior novices. Any novices who objected to the rites were invited to spend the night in Maria Luisa's cell, and if they did, they mysteriously fell ill and died. Princess Katarina. By the age of 36, Princess Katarina von Hensel and Sigmaringen had experienced 2 divorces. The princess fell in love with Rome's convent of Santa Ambrogio and made the decision to become a nun rather than stay in her native Germany. The princess quickly discovered some odd activity, though, and began to fear for her life. The princess snuck out a message that said, "Only save me," in a mysterious font. She thought Maria Luisa was attempting to kill her after learning of the abusive, unlawful and oppressive behavior. Maria Luisa was charged with murder, veneration of a fake saint, and homosexual encounters during the Inquisition trial. However, throughout her trial, one offense, in particular, stood out. Witnesses claimed that Maria Luisa participated in an erotic ceremony that was passed off as a Jesuit blessing. The convent's founder, Maria Agnes Ferrario, gave a secret blessing that included French kissing, among other things. One witness claimed that the male confessor placed a cross with his mouth on her throat. He would occasionally kiss the penitent on the heart while sticking his tongue inside their lips. None occasionally passed into rapture while receiving the benediction, while bowed before the confessor. The heavenly instructions. After sharing an explicit letter with the convent's newest member, the twice-widowed German Princess Katarina, Maria Luisa made the decision to permanently get rid of the critic. To support her acts, Maria Luisa utilized fake letters from the Virgin Mary. Maria Louise received orders from heaven telling her to put an end to Katarina's life. Princess Katarina manages to escape the convent with the aid of her cousin. After numerous failed attempts, Katarina was sent to her family's French estate to heal after being critically unwell and refusing all food and medicine. Maria Luisa later acknowledged forcing the princess to consume opium, mercury, and glass powder. Santa. When Santa Ambrogio started covering up its crimes, it was still a young convent. The group was started in 1806 by a young nun who was just entering her 30s. Sister Maria Aidens Ferrorio had a strong reputation for donning an iron mask with more than 50 nails pointing in her direction. Despite the founder's claims to be a living saint, the founder really self-inflicted her stigmata. In addition, Ferrorio was tried by the Inquisition in 1816 and found guilty. The accusations involved her confessor and faked holiness, even though Ferrari's convent was able to remain open for the rest of her life. The Inquisition may have been looking for a reason to close it. Ferraro lived the remainder of her life in exile over a century past while the convent secret remained a secret. Even after an Inquisition trial, the Santa Ambrogio secrets remained secret, with details of these abysses. We are moving to a broader scope, highlighting more disturbed realities of nuns' history and abuse of power. Behind the serene and authoritative facade of some abysses or mother superiors, a dark abuse of power has been exposed. These influential figures within the convent hierarchy exploited their positions to exert control and engage in reprehensible acts. The abuse often manifested in physical, emotional, and even sexual mistreatment of the nuns under their authority. Instances of power abuse within convents highlight the vulnerability of those living within these closed communities. Some abysses driven by a desire for dominance or personal gratification subjected the nuns to physical punishments, verbal humiliation, and psychological manipulation. Shockingly, there have been cases where sexual exploitation occurred with vulnerable nuns falling victim to the predatory behavior of those in positions of power. Infanticide and convent concealment. One of the most disturbing secrets of convent life involves the discovery of infants' bodies concealed within the walls of religious institutions. In rare cases, nuns who had succumbed to their biological instincts engaged in illicit relationships that resulted in pregnancies, fearful of the severe consequences that awaited them. These desperate women resorted to unspeakable acts, murdering their newborns and hiding the evidence. The revelation of infanticide within convents sheds light on the emotional turmoil faced by these women isolated from society with limited options and support. Some nuns found themselves trapped between their religious vows and the harsh realities of their humanity. The discovery of these tragic incidents raises questions about the pressures imposed on these women and the lack of resources available to them in times of need. Witchcraft and the occult. Despite their professed devotion to God, nuns have not been exempt from accusations of witchcraft and involvement in the occult in periods of heightened societal paranoia, fueled by religious fervor or fear of the supernatural. Accusations of heresy and devilry often targeted those within religious institutions. Some nuns were found practicing rituals and engaging in activities deemed to be connected to witchcraft or the occult. The association between nuns and witchcraft is a testament to the complexities of human nature and the blurred lines between faith and fear. In the midst of societal upheaval, when religious conformity was paramount, and any deviance from the established norms was met with suspicion and hostility, nuns who found solace in alternative practices or expressed unconventional beliefs became victims of persecution, often facing arrest, torture, and even execution, corruption, and financial exploitation. While convents were expected to embody values of simplicity, poverty, and charitable work, some nuns succumbed to corruption and financial exploitation under the guise of piety. These religious institutions amassed substantial wealth through questionable means. Nuns driven by greed or influenced by external forces, mismanaged funds engaged in fraudulent activities, and diverted resources that were meant for charitable causes. The exposure of corruption within convents shattered the idealized image of selflessness and devotion associated with nuns. Instances of financial exploitation revealed a stark contrast between the professed values and the actions of those entrusted with the management of convent assets. The misappropriation of funds and unethical practices tarnished the reputation of religious institutions, betraying the trust of the faithful and undermining the noble intentions behind their establishment. Forced convent life. While many women willingly entered convents, others were subjected to forced or coerced entry against their will. In certain historical periods, families often motivated by economic or social factors or religious authorities imposed religious life upon young girls or women without their consent. These individuals were denied the opportunity to pursue their own dreams, desires, and personal autonomy. Forced entry into convent life created a breeding ground for resentment and dissatisfaction. Women who did not willingly embrace the religious calling often struggled to find true devotion and fulfillment within the confines of the convent walls. The suppression of their individuality and the denial of their agency resulted in a sense of captivity and a lack of genuine religious commitment. Mental health issues. The strict rules, isolation, and intense religious fervor within convents have at times contributed to mental health issues among nuns. The pressure to conform to rigid standards of piety and perfection, combined with limited social interaction and the suppression of personal desires, took a toll on the emotional well-being of some nuns. Living in an environment where individuality was discouraged and personal needs were subjugated to religious obligations, created a breeding ground for psychological distress. Instances of depression, anxiety, and even breakdowns were not uncommon. Nuns who experienced mental health challenges often had limited resources for support or treatment, as mental health was not well understood or prioritized in the past. Self-harm and mortification. In extreme cases, nuns engaged in acts of self-harm and mortification as a form of religious devotion. These practices involved inflicting physical pain or suffering upon oneself in an attempt to purify the soul or attain spiritual enlightenment. Self-flagellation, wearing uncomfortable garments, or intentionally subjecting oneself to harsh conditions were examples of such extreme practices. These acts of self-harm were rooted in the belief that physical suffering could bring one closer to God or serve as a form of penance for sins. While these practices were not widespread among nuns, their existence is a disturbing testament to the extremes to which some individuals would go in their pursuit of religious devotion. Religious fanaticism. In rare instances, religious fanaticism among nuns led to extreme behaviors and acts of violence. Overzealous devotion to religious dogma or apocalyptic beliefs fueled radical actions within certain religious communities. Fanatical nuns driven by visions, prophecies, or charismatic leaders may have participated in violent acts or even initiated religious rebellions. Instances of religious fanaticism among nuns were often fueled by a fervent belief in divine messages or a desire to combat perceived injustices within the church or society. While the majority of nuns remained committed to their faith and lived lives of service and devotion, these extreme cases highlight the potential dangers of unchecked religious zealotry. Suppression of feminine identity. Throughout history, some religious institutions sought to suppress or deny the full expression of feminine identity. Among nuns, women were expected to conform to gender norms dictated by the patriarchal hierarchy of the Church. This included adopting male saints' names, relinquishing personal possessions, and forsaking personal ambitions and desires, suppressing feminine identity within religious life, denied women the opportunity to fully explore their unique experiences and perspectives. It perpetuated gender inequalities and reinforced patriarchal power structures within religious institutions. The push for conformity and the denial of individuality limited the potential for growth and self-expression among nuns, overshadowing the significant contributions they could have made as empowered women within their communities. It is important to acknowledge that while these points highlight disturbing aspects of nuns' history, they do not represent the experiences of all nuns or religious communities. Many nuns lived lives of genuine devotion, service, and empowerment, making significant contributions to society. The intention is to provide a nuanced understanding of the diverse experiences within the broader history of nuns. With that, we have reached the end of today's show. What steps should be taken to make things better, as we still have the same type of cases coming up? Do let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that thumbs up. It will help us to understand our audience and allows YouTube to suggest similar videos to you. Thanks for watching. We hope to see you at the next one.